Good morning, Harford County Public Schools. Well, this is certainly overwhelming. They didn't tell me about this when I was considering this at all. I know we all have back-to-school nightmares recurring for some of us, and I would like to tell you mine. I am in my classroom, which is packed, and the students are all talking loudly. It's chaos, and I am yelling and yelling to get someone's attention, and no one even knows I'm there. And as I'm yelling, the room starts to become an auditorium, and the people grow. And I'd just like to thank you all for making my nightmare a reality today. This is just wonderful. My name is Paige Milanoski. I am your Teacher of the Year for Harford County Public. And most importantly, I am a teacher at Havre de Grace High School, which is what I'm most proud of. I will tell you that as I drive around in my car with the giant red apple on it, I have had so many amazing experiences with seeing the way that people appreciate teachers. Every single day, someone is shouting out their window at me, giving me thumbs up, yelling, "Yay, teachers, go teachers, stay strong." I got a lot of that in June, a lot of stay strong. I really just wish every single one of you in this room could have that experience for a day. Maybe give each of you the car for a day. I don't know, something. Because I always knew I was appreciated as a teacher, for sure, by my students and the people around me, but I never had any idea how strangers, community members, just people everywhere really just appreciate everything that we do. And I struggle because I would love to convey that to each and every one of you. I want you to know that feeling that I'm able to receive every single day. So the only thing I can do is just vow to you that I hope I represent you in the best possible way I can, and I vow to work as hard as I possibly can to represent teachers well in this year, and I'm humbled by this opportunity, and I'm honored to hold this position, so thank you very much. I know that many of us are thinking about our classrooms right now, and the work that we have to be doing and wishing you were there. But I know as teachers, we're always looking ahead. We're assessing and thinking about what we're going to do next. I urge you for a moment just to truly look around this room. Nothing like this, as long as I have been in Harford County Public Schools, has ever been attempted or carried out. And just looking around at everyone is just breathtaking. Just take a minute, let your classroom go for a minute, your schools go behind you, and look around and truly appreciate this moment because it is magical. And I'd like to thank Dr. Bulson and his whole team, because it takes a team. You should have seen them buzzing around here yesterday to give us this opportunity. So thank you very much to them. So having students celebrating the new school year with us makes today's event even more special. It's at this time that I would like to invite Zachary O. from Halls Crossroads Elementary School to lead the Pledge of Allegiance for us, which is going to be followed by the singing of the national anthem by Julia Byers, who is an incoming 6th grader at Bel Air Middle School, and they're all just as adorable as can be. And I'd ask you to please stand so we can begin with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you very much. That was beautiful. Please be seated. I would like to acknowledge as well the Treasure Jewels group. I was told they'd be sitting up there. Can you stand? There they are. They've just been doing a little bit of everything to help us get ready for today. So thank you so much for being with us as well. We have to thank Harford Community College for being a wonderful partner in hosting today's event. Bringing greetings for us today will be Dr. Diana Phillips, president of Harford Community College.
That young lady has a future, does she not? And so does the young man that led us in the Pledge of Allegiance. He was flawless. So I'm Diana Phillips. I usually introduce myself as the proud president of Harford Community College. And if you look around this room right now today, you will recognize one of the reasons that I'm the proud president. Harford Community College is a place in our community in Harford County where we gather in. We gather people here on this campus, a place of learning. So I bring you, from your colleagues, friends, and neighbors at Harford Community College, welcome. We welcome you to the 2019-20 academic year. We're so happy you're here. Harford Community College actually exists because of our history, our legacy from Harford County Public Schools. It was a Harford County Public School superintendent in the early and mid-50s that led the charge, led the initiative to create Harford Junior College. And since that time, and for the first 13 to 15 years of our existence, we shared a Board of Education. The Board of Education for Harford County Public Schools and the Board of Education for Harford Junior College was the same Board of Education. And when we first opened our doors, we shared space. We, as a college, held our first class September 11th, 1957, in the basement of Bel Air High School. So all of that to say is, throughout our history, here in Harford County, we have been integrated. We have been an integrated whole serving the educational needs of Harford County. And I can say without question that since my colleague, when I came on board working with Superintendent Canavan and then working with Sean Bulson, has been my great pleasure to have educational leaders in this community where we could partner and really work to create a resilient Harford County that once you get past the critical need of food and shelter, education is the most important resource and access that we as human beings have. And that's because, and I know that everyone in this room, all of us, a phrase that we use at Harford Community College is educators. We are all educators on our campus. And we understand, and I know that you understand this as well, is that education is a generational good. Once we have a solid foundation in education that you provide at Harford County Public Schools, and students come on to Harford Community College, that education that is provided to the citizens of this county is generational. Generational education lifts all of us and enables us to develop this resilient community and to build a stronger Harford County. So my job is to welcome you to the day, to thank Dr. Bulson for letting us at Harford Community College be part of this wonderful new experience. It is my honor and privilege to work with the fine folks here at Harford County Public Schools, and I wish you an absolutely fantastic academic year. If you take the energy in this room today into the school year this year, I am absolutely confident it'll be a fabulous year. So just one thing, woohoo, is one of the...
At this time, I'd like to acknowledge some members from the Board of Education that are with us this morning. Mrs. Kathy Carmelo, Dr. Joyce Harold, Mrs. Sonia Karwacki, Ms. Patrice Riccardi, Ms. Tamara Rush, and my favorite member, Mr. Christian Walker, the student member of the Board of Education. And from the Harford County Council, Mr. Curtis Beulah is with us today as well. Welcome. Last year was a very difficult year for all of us. It was a year that tested our strength as educators and as communities and even as human beings. When you have been in a valley like that, the hill naturally looks very intimidating. Here we are. We've all taken that most difficult first step of coming back, and I know in my heart that we can take this hill together. Looking out at all of you right now, you look like a brand new, freshly opened box of crayons. You know the type I'm talking about, straight Crayola multi-pack, no rose art up in here. You're standing so tall, you've got your crisp wrapper on you, you got your sharpened points, all these different people from different backgrounds, ages, and stages of their career. Y'all are looking real good to me from up here. The thing is, as the school year moves along, we will all most likely become very different versions of the crayons that we are here today. Let's go ahead to November. Maybe the point isn't as sharp, a little rounded over. You're starting to feel the wear and tear of the school year a little bit. You go ahead to your January crayon self. Your paper wrapper might be peeled back a little bit. After winter break, we're all trying to jam ourselves into that sharpener that never works. Trying to get ourselves back to where we were, which isn't going to happen, you know that. And then we look way ahead to our June crayon. got the wrapper off, that sharpener damage is there, somebody's broken us all up into all kinds of little nubs so everybody can have a piece of us. But the thing is, when you think about it, crayons, whether they're rounded over, paper peeled back, mauled by a sharpener, even broken up into pieces, or shiny, fresh, new, bright Crayola crayons, when you color with any version of those crayons, the color's not any less vibrant. The function or purpose of the crayon hasn't been diminished. Summer's a time to throw us all into that giant crayon melting pot and start us new again. Wrap us up in that crisp new paper and sharpen that tip, and we're ready to go again. But our function and our purpose never changed. Our vibrance and the impact that we made when we put ourselves to paper never dulled. So even though we've been through a lot, we're ready to go. We have inner strength that I happen to believe with every fiber of my being no other profession has. On Monday, I had the privilege of presenting at the Teacher Leader Symposium with my 4 Teacher of the Year finalist colleagues. And we showed a TED Talk by Dr. Shelley Van Etten de Sanchez that focused on the importance of collaboration and working together. But the speaker introduced a really interesting concept that's really stuck with me about how when something is really dear or important to you, you tend to hold it very closely to you, tightly in the palm of your hand. When you hold it so tightly to you, you have complete control over it. In order to let go of something, you have to open your arms real wide and make room for a whole new realm of possibility. Sure, you no longer have control once you open your arms, and sure, other people can reach out and grab a hold of it, but I think that's exactly the point. This is what's important, that the things that we hold dear are shared and can change for the better with others' input and impact, and how awesome it is that these things can somehow grow and turn into something much more wonderful than we ever believed they could be. The concept has caused me to think of the whole teaching profession in this way, because I'm a hold dear. I'm a hold it to my chest. What goes on in our schools, we hold it to ourselves, we nurture it, we close our hands around it because we are afraid of it being damaged or changed. But I think now more than ever, it's vital for us to open our arms to each other and to our communities, so that everyone can see the wonderful things that are happening in our schools, and they can contribute in ways that can only make them better than we ever imagined. We need to open our arms and our hearts and show everyone why our profession needs to be embraced, lifted up, celebrated, and compensated. It begins with us here today, releasing our closed hands, welcoming, collaborating, showing the power of what we do on a daily basis, inviting others into our worlds, into our classrooms, into our schools, whether it be physically, through social media, whatever have you. We need to show everyone that the need inside of our schools is so great because the greatness coming out of our schools is so very needed. Our crayons, they can be rounded or snapped in half, but our function and our purpose, the impact that we have on our kids and in our schools will never, ever be changed or dulled. So my fellow crayons, I'll see you at the sharpener in January, and I look forward to being melted down with you again in June. But what I most look forward to is seeing the impact of the magnificent color that we will create together in between. Let's make this the best year yet. Let's remember to celebrate and uplift this beautiful profession of which we have all chosen to be a part. I can't think of 5,000 better people with whom I would choose to take this hill. Thank you very much. Today's event is a wonderful opportunity to bring members of our school community together. We'll be celebrating the new school year as well as learning about some important system initiatives from Dr. Bulson. But before I bring him up here, I have to tell you one of my most embarrassing stories, and I'm not sure I believe I'm going to tell you this, but I am. Here it goes. So in March, I had to take some paperwork for Teacher of the Year down to the Roberti building. And it was one of those spring days when it rains for 3 weeks. It was pouring. And I have this yellow raincoat that all the people that I work with make fun of. It's ugly, but I love it. It's my big yellow raincoat. So I got out of the parking garage and got out of my car, and I saw Dr. Bulson getting out of his car ahead. So I automatically slowed down because I didn't want to walk in the door at the same time he was. But it was pouring, and then he had to go and have some trouble with his umbrella at the door, which threw my whole game off. So I get up to the door, and I got the hood on. It's got a big old hood. And the rain is dripping down, and you can't really hear very well, which I hope worked to my advantage. And he held the door for me and said something like, it's really coming down out there, or something he would say. And I said, yeah, sure is. Want to get in my coat with me? Hey, what does that even mean? Why would I say that? And he just kind of looked at me, and I'm hoping he didn't hear me, because I have never gotten a letter from a lawyer or anything. So. But I got back in the car, and I thought, oh my God, well, that Teacher of the Year goal was nice, and sure was nice working for HCPS. I texted all my teachers, my friends that have a degree. I won't tell you what they texted back, but even on your worst day, just remember, at least you didn't ask the superintendent of schools to get in your coat with you. It's really your takeaway from this event. So, with no further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Bulson to the stage, not into our coats.
Okay, I have exactly no idea how to follow that. I think probably the best part of the story is we all have that moment we wish we could take something we said back, right? And one of the things, I had some slides in here that I pulled out in the consideration for time, but this really is a tremendous family. But one of the things I wanted to point out is, have you ever been to a family reunion where there wasn't at least one member who was a little off? And the idea is there's no perfect family. We all have these things we need to work together despite some of the challenges, despite some of the unique personalities we may encounter. But we have a great family right here. And I mean, just to kick off our students today, wow. I know we always find great talent here in the county, but that was just amazing. And of course, to my colleague, Dr. Phillips, we have a great partnership, and we're going to be doing some amazing things together, so having this event here today. So let me take a moment to thank our 3 sponsors for today. We were able to bring this event to you at almost no cost whatsoever because these 3 sponsors stepped in and helped with so much of what we do. So APG, of course, they were a pretty obvious sponsor for today since we are here in the arena that they sponsored. Our Educational Foundation, you know them as the school supplies people, and I think they've been giving those out, but I know they're ready to roll out a whole lot more, and just tremendous partners, and we have so much more to do with them. And then, as I said, the community college, right at the center. They've done so much to keep the costs down for us, to make it so that we could have this day and celebrate together. But we have a greater purpose today. And that purpose is so that I have the opportunity, our leaders have the opportunity to say thank you to all of you, everyone who works in this district. I don't think a school district can hire people who aren't educators. So no matter what your job title is, you're here for students, and you've been doing amazing work for the students here in this county, lifting this county. But what you do makes it possible for our students to have the best possible environment, to be safe, to grow, to learn, and everyone here contributes to that. And so, like I said, regardless of your job title, I would like you all to think a little bit about how the work you do on any given day leads to student success, how it contributes to students' ability to be successful. So let's get moving. I've shared this image a number of times. In fact, it's in a lot of my presentations when I meet with our school leaders. It may have even shown up at a board meeting or two. But this is how I see the work of a school district. Rather than considering a hierarchy, which is how we think, large organizations, we have nearly 5,000 employees. We think there's this hierarchy with someone sitting on top who doesn't own a yellow raincoat. Mine's green. But I probably wasn't wearing it that day, so I was soaked. Anyway, that premise of being on top doesn't really help, right? Because we all have to work together. But most importantly, we have to work to ensure our students receive the support they need. So the idea is that the support flows uphill, and that word support is something I'm going to return to quite a bit today. All of our system employees, I feel we're working toward ensuring our school leaders have what they need so that they can support the teachers who are really on the front lines with the students in the classroom for the instructional part. But the idea is at the end of this line, at the top of this hierarchy, is the students. And that's how we need to operate as a school district. And as I went around last year meeting with people and hearing from people, I think one of my favorite comments I heard, I had the chance to go meet with the representative assembly from HCEA, and someone said, Dr. Bulson, we just want to thank you because it just feels different. But despite all the challenges we went through last year, I kept hearing people say, it just feels different. We didn't have to work very hard to make that feeling change. I think my response was something like, people just need permission to treat each other well. And you do that. It's at your core. It's your instinct to treat each other well. But I ask you to keep doing that because that's what really is going to drive our success. So to frame my comments today, we're going to start a little bit with what happened last year. I want to highlight 3 things about last year. I won't dwell too long on last year. Whoops, 2 came up together. We'll start with the entry plan. I arrived July 2nd, and I wanted to start right away learning about the school district. And I had lots of meetings, lots of conversations, and I wanted to hear what worked well. So we're going to talk a little bit about the entry plan. Keeps hitting 2 at a time. Then the ACRT training, the active assailant critical response training that I believe everyone at this point should have been through. I know we have a couple people who we had to do sort of makeup stuff for, but pretty much everyone's been through that. And I want to talk about that for a couple different reasons. And then the budget. I had no idea coming in, and I joke occasionally because the night I signed my contract was the year they sort of reconciled last year's budget, that meeting that went till 2 in the morning. I had no idea the budget was going to consume my life the way it did last year. But it also showed me the type of community we have, that when we work together we can make the hard decisions and move forward, and you guys have done a tremendous job helping us do that. So the first finding from my entry plan, I started every conversation with a question: what do we have? What does Harford County need to celebrate? And almost without exception, the first thing I heard, it's the people. It's the people and the relationships they have. We have great people here. And I can tell you, I have now worked in 4 different school districts, and this is the best I've ever experienced. The quality of the talent at all places, the commitment to the students, the commitment to the work, in the interest not only in supporting this community, but this school district and working together. So again, thank you for that. And that's once we have that, we can do anything. And I think we're going to do some pretty incredible things. So I want to talk about some of the other findings, things that I learned, again, listening to many of you. And there's all these different topics. As I talk to principals and teachers, the idea that, okay, reading, we got to keep focusing on that. And I'm going to talk a little more about how that work will be moving forward. But that was the area where we thought we needed to focus a little more clearly. Writing was different. And I've said this in many settings. Writing was something that kind of fell off everyone's agenda years ago when No Child Left Behind started, and we just kind of did math and language arts, and we weren't doing deliberate writing. But see, you were here. And I started to see how that was benefiting students and how important it was to go back to really focusing on that. And so again, that's something that we're going to build on. It was a strength that existed, and we're going to take that a little further. Career options. I heard a lot about what students needed to have available to them. They needed access to more technical careers. They needed some other options here. And again, these are conversations that we're going to take some of those things forward, but again, with feedback from the community. Training. Now, I put this word here. Really what I learned was that you guys didn't have enough opportunities to work together. You didn't have enough opportunities to build your own capacity by learning from the experts that are already here in the district. And so that came from a lot of conversations with principals who often didn't have enough time to work together, to share great ideas across schools. And so looking at how we do our training in the district was a big part of the work that came out of those findings. Safety, as I said, we're going to talk about that. I heard an urgent need to improve some of our practices around safety. Mental health. Every school district in the country is struggling with this. This is something that's changing. We can, anyone who's been in the classroom for a few years can look back and see our students are coming at us a little different. They're bringing some challenges that maybe we didn't have before. And so there's been a lot of focus on that. And then, as I said, everyone said we got to deal with the budget, and we have. We will continue to. So let's talk about active assailant critical response training. It emerged as a priority. We were hearing that our folks just didn't feel safe. We didn't believe we were doing enough, giving enough options to our students. We have exactly one employee responsible for safety for the entire district, serving 38,000 students, 54 schools, many other buildings, and all of you employees. But fortunately, he has a lot of energy, and working with Jackie Tarbert, our head of professional development, Donovan Brooks, and Jackie designed the training. And I asked him to produce a Gantt chart, if you know what I mean. It's got like all your to-do items and then sort of a phase of time you can just roll out. Because training 5,000 people takes a ton of work and a lot of time. But we went through last year, we stuck with it, and we've had great feedback because we not only just introduced people to new ideas, but we had that classroom experience and everyone got the practical experience. So what was important to me about this was not just that we were focusing on safety. Every school district has to pay attention to safety. But I wanted ACRT to become a model for how we involve everyone in our training. If we're going to do something where everyone in this district needs to learn it, let's start with that. It was a priority, everyone knew it was important, but let's talk about how we can ensure that the training is beneficial, that it sticks, that people learn from it, but they also feel they understand why it's important, and I think it really has served as a great model. So let's talk about the budget just for a second. Just a couple things I want to mention. I mean, those of you who paid attention to it, it was sort of an ongoing story. We knew we had to start with an attainable revenue target, and we set some targets for what we were trying to achieve, and we knew even to get there we were going to have to make some hard decisions. But underlying that, we had one, goal that we really wanted to focus on, which is regardless of what we do, even if we have to make more hard decisions, we're going to make sure our salary and benefits stay on track for those employees who are here. that we don't have compensation become a victim of tight budget times. And that meant we had to cut a little deeper, we had to work a little harder. But throughout that, it was because I absolutely believe that we really need to take care of all of our employees, and we made sure that we worked together to do that. And I believe, again, despite some of the challenges we confronted in the budget, we stayed together, and everybody was able to move up in that area. This is probably the key of how that worked. We have 5 employee associations. I could do a shout out for each, but I still am struggling to pronounce these acronyms. But just recognize, you have 5 leaders of these organizations. We met with them almost monthly. We met with them regularly to have conversations. The strategy we employed with the budget was something that we decided on together. We made sure that no group was sort of at odds with another, because as a team, coming together to do some of the hard work, you're unstoppable. And we saw that emerging. We saw people coming out, understanding what we had to confront, recognizing that there were hard things to do. But when we had, and I'll say all 5 leaders are female, so we had this team of amazing women working together on your behalf, and they did a great job. So I want to thank them, or maybe let's just give them a round of applause. I'm not sure which ones are here right now. If you've learned anything about me, I put this out there frequently. I've done the Gallup Strengths Finder, and they give you 5 strengths to think about. My number 1 strength is includer. So if anyone's familiar with the Gallup stuff, but you'll see a theme running through my work where we put people together to solve problems. And let's talk about some of the things that happened, I think, that are very much worth celebrating. At the state level, we were all watching what was going on with the Kirwan Commission, also known as the Maryland Commission on Innovation and Excellence in Education. We were a little uncertain. We're still uncertain because they're still working. And we know they had a lot of ideas. And in fact, many of the things they're looking at adjusting in education are actually some really good things. The trouble is there are also some very expensive things, and money is always at the center of the decisions we make. In the end, last year, the state of Maryland provided $6.2 million in just our base formula funding. We were expecting $600,000 from them. So we were able to use much of that $6.2 million. If you recall, at the end of the year, we started out thinking we were going to have to cut more than 200 positions. We were able to bring more than half of those back. That had a lot to do with the additional funding we weren't anticipating from the state. And then there was also an additional $8.7 million that came in that was a little more targeted. In other words, we didn't have the flexibility to use those funds on the things we had cut. We had to use them in other places, but it was good work. Some of the funds came in. A big chunk of that was money that went into salaries. And we made sure that it wasn't just one group that benefited from that, but every group. And that was a commitment of this board, of that leadership team from the associations. But other funds are going into things like pre-K, expanding seats in pre-K. They're going into bringing more supports in for our poorest schools. They're going into things like bringing in more supports for mental health. So again, the work of Kirwan, it's bringing some good stuff to us. It's allowed us to make some investments that we might not have otherwise been able to do, but we also don't get to choose exactly how to spend that. So that's part of what we're dealing with there. Now this is our local funding. For 5 years, every year, the funds we've received have been above the minimum requirements, above the maintenance of effort, and that's important, okay? When we get into a budget, in the end, we never feel like we have enough. That's just how the conversation goes. But something happened last year that is very much worth celebrating. In addition to receiving the highest number, the greatest amount of money we've ever received from Harford County, each year in the last few years, Harford County's revenue has been growing. The school district, the school system, just in the base budget, represents between 40 and 45% of the budget for Harford County. When we started talking last year, one of our goals was to ensure that the school system received an equivalent amount of the new money. So, if a certain amount of new money came in, we wanted to see at least 40 to 45% of the new money. For the first time last year, we hit that target. Working with our county leadership, the amount of additional funding we received in our budget exceeded the percentage of the new funding that the county brought in. To me, that's very much worth a celebration. As hard as it is to go through a budget and get to the end and still have to make hard decisions, we have to say thank you, and we have to keep working to improve this. So to our local leaders, we're going to be back. We're going to have more to say. We have so much more we want to do. But let's appreciate what they did for us last year, and let's move into this next year. So let's take just one moment to recognize that. But as I said, we had a commitment going through this. And I don't know exactly what the numbers have been, but again, this year we looked at everybody, making sure everyone moved forward. And I've joked that there's probably two types of people in the room. There's the type who, when the announcement that the pay stubs have gone into your direct deposit, there's those who look and check to make sure the pennies are the same as they were 2 weeks ago. And then there's those who haven't looked at it for years and have no idea what the number is. They just have a sense because it gets them through, right? Well, for those of you who have been paying attention, the average salary increase for people in this school district was 4.73 across all 5 associations. Considering the challenges in the budget, that right there is a tremendous step forward. And it's my hope that we'll be able to continue on this trajectory because people who work in our schools deserve it. So hopefully we're going to get to stop talking about money. So let's turn into the future. Let's start thinking about where we're going with our work. I'm going to leave budget on there for a second because we still have work to do. We need to figure out how to make our budget sustainable. We know we've cut positions every year since 2011. We need to get to a point where that isn't a requirement, where we can start moving forward and building up. So that's still part of our conversation. But the next part is where I want to go next. We need to align our spending with our school system and community priorities. The challenge is we haven't done a lot of talking about what those priorities are. So if I were to go around the room and ask the close to 25 people who are here now, 2,500 people who are here now, sorry, I move the decimal. I'll bet I could come up with 3,000 opinions because everyone has different ideas about what we should be doing in education. And so based on the conversations, a function of the entry plan, of talking to people, of feedback from school leaders and others, I want to talk a little bit about where I see us going, particularly instructionally, but it involves everyone. So I'm going to return to this as the entry. Again, if we think of this as just a theoretical framework, here's how I view the work, and while it's kind of hard to quantify in actions, this is what people feel, right? It should feel better. We feel like we're getting the support we need. So let's talk about how we do that. First part, in any large organization, it's natural for silos to emerge because people are busy. Kind of got to keep your head down and work on your thing, but the trouble is over time, I think the organization just had some places where we had people working on different things, but not often getting the chance to work together. And as I've shared, working together is something I value, and I see great results emerge from it. So one of the innovations for this year, it was really just moving people together so that they could work as a team and have some of what we're producing be a little more consistent. The Office of Communications and Family Outreach. We took, I'll just put them all up here at once. We took 4 entities, essentially 4 leaders, but it's really 4 groups that come together: equity and cultural proficiency, communications, family and community partnerships, and innovative partnerships. That team now will be looking across the district to help us clarify and strengthen our messaging, but also helping identify those priorities that we have moving forward. But here's something that's a little more tangible. If you saw the last board meeting, you saw a brief presentation about Parent Academy. So starting a few months ago, we sent out a survey to our families. We had over 2,000 responses. The gist of the survey was, what information could we share with you that would help you better support your children? Now, I know in this room we don't just have school system employees, we also have a lot of parents. And some of you working in the district may know more or less about what you can do to support your children, but I can say, even having been at all these different levels in the school system, I still have questions for my daughter. And so we wanted to hear what people thought they needed to know. So our first Parent Academy session is in September. I believe it's at Bel Air High School, and it's on the topic of social media and cyber safety for kids, something that we're all thinking about. But you can expect to see Parent Academy sessions popping up around the district as a way to grow our parent engagement, but not just to get them involved for the sake of getting them involved, to get them involved to help us as a school system do our work better, to help them support their children. So enlisting our parents and building their capacity. We also put together another structure, PDAC, Professional Development Advisory Council. Now this grew out of that model. Remember I talked about how I wanted the training we did on safety to be something that was a model for how we do training. As I said, Jackie Tarbert, who I do need to keep giving shout outs to because she's also the person who organized a lot of this. She leads the group. She was our head of professional development, but she, in the hierarchy, sits in the instructional side of the house. And so one of the things I learned coming in is we didn't have a deliberate plan for the operational side of the house. That we do training, and the different supervisors and coordinators and leaders in those areas would conduct training, but it wasn't coordinated. And when we asked to do the ACRT training, asked Jackie to do it even though she's the instructional person, and so she worked with Donovan and we designed something that again, could serve everybody. Because when you think about safety, as an example, just training our instructional people was not going to get the job done. The front lines of safety, depending on what's going on, could be our bus operators. That may be where we see it. It could be the people sitting at the desk in the front lobby of the school. It could be someone working out behind a school who sees something suspicious going on. Our front line could be any of you. And so we wanted to make sure everyone received the same high quality training. And so we took that model and we're looking at how to expand that to the entire district. So you have a team that's been meeting regularly for about 6 months now probably, looking at how we can think about training, capacity building for all of our employees differently, because we know as we all come up, our students are going to perform better. So when you look at some of the things we've talked about, I talk a lot about partnership, and this is a little small, it's hard to see, but in the top right of this is the PDAC logo. We know that we are in the business of not just teaching students, we need to teach adults. We're also helping teach the parents. So if you look at those two groups in the top with Parent Academy, and with our reconfigured look at how we do our training and our capacity building for all employees, we now have two of the really critical parts, critical entities, I guess, that influence student success working together to, again, build their capacity. So that work is ongoing. And then down at the bottom of the slide, we have the county government logo there because rec department, social services, health department, transportation, there are so many entities in this county who do things to help our students be successful. We have partnerships with them, but we also can keep doing more to ensure that we can help them be successful in their work. Just like when I talked about, back to the safety thing, you saw the picture. All those law enforcement personnel behind the table. Us being successful with safety just doesn't help us address our mission, it helps them do their job better. And it's nice for us because they're the experts, they can inform our work. So the partnership, there's more we can leverage in our partnerships to help our students be successful. So we're building the structures within the organization to make sure our work in that area is deliberate and focused on the needs of students. And again, you're all involved. Customer service. The idea of just giving people permission to treat each other differently. When you think about customer service, there's certain places you go, whether it's stores or restaurants or things like that, that you just know they're focused on customer service and they do it well, right? And some places don't do it so well. This idea of how we work together on behalf of students, customer service is really going to be at the center of it because customer service in many cases is an attitude. Now, sometimes I do a show of hands, but I can't see y'all, so it won't help me. After college, like many people, I worked in restaurants. I was a bartender, a waiter, and all those kinds of things. And my first job in a restaurant was at a place that can remain nameless because it's been out of business for a long time. And the owner of that restaurant had owned a number of restaurants, all of which are out of business, because his interest was in making money on the people who walked through the door. He didn't have this ethic of customer service. Customer service was something you did for the sake of making money on the people who walked through the door. And I had an opportunity to change within my service career. And I went to a company. I happened to be at the one in downtown Georgetown, Clyde's. And many of you may know Clyde's. They're the largest restaurant group, or among the largest independent restaurant groups in the DC area, and they have a number of restaurants. The closest one to here is in Columbia. But they did it differently. And I never feel bad about promoting them. Of course, I don't get any sort of benefits from them. Occasionally, the manager of the restaurant in Georgetown worked with me, so he's sometimes nice to me. But Clyde's took every employee, everybody who walked through the door, and put you in customer service training for a few weeks. And they talked about the models of customer service and how to do it well, how to treat people well. But there was something else about it. Because as an employee there, I've been an advocate for them for nearly 30 years now. Because not only do they have a quality product, but they take care of people. And so when you walk in, you feel good. And that's important to them. But what it meant for me as an employee was my values, what I cared about, were aligned with their values. That I worked for a place. And frankly, going there, I didn't make more money there than I did in the other restaurants. It wasn't even about the money. I was in a place where I felt comfortable. And again, taking care of people has made them such a successful company. And there are many stories. I mean, when I went to my training there, I remember we did the case studies in those days on Disney, on FedEx, on Nordstrom, on those places that are renowned for customer service. And I think, and you'll see some things starting to happen. We have a customer service task force that has been convened. Their first formal meeting is in September, but we already have a number of things rolling out. So let's talk about these 5 ladies. You heard one of them today. Let's give a quick shout out for Teacher of the Year finalists. A fantastic, and I say brilliant and productive group also, because they've been working on this. They've been working with Eric Davis on getting started on some of the customer service work and how to support people. So just in their short time together, since they were named back in the late spring, we have a couple of examples, because when we think about customer service, we got to think of it through 2 lenses. We need to think about the internal customer service. How do we support each other? How do we help each other do their jobs better? How do we make our interactions amongst ourselves more positive, more beneficial, more supportive? So we have the internal customer service, and then we also have the external customer service. How do we appear to those who we're serving in this community? The parents, the students, the other community members who interact with our schools. So these are things, and I think there's a lot of very specific, sometimes simple, but things, again, sometimes it's just about changing an attitude. So here's an example. They both pop up at once. The first thing, that thing on the left there, is the flip book that our 5 Teacher of the Year finalists designed to be given out to all of our new teachers. Very simple, just a list of resources and ideas that new teachers may benefit from as they're getting ready to go into their first year as teachers in the classroom serving our students. So that's sort of an internal example, something that we can do to help support those who are working for us. But here's an external example, external customer service. Here's something we can do for parents. What you see there is a photo of a bookmark. On one side, the bookmark's written in English. On the other side, it's written in Spanish. And what's on the bookmark is a list of questions. And these are questions that parents can ask a teacher in a parent-teacher conference to make sure we're kind of focusing on those things that really matter for student success and in the classroom. And so this is something you should see showing up in your schools, but this is one of the ways, again, we can help our own parents who are coming into our schools better advocate for their children. Now, when you think customer service, website is usually the first place you look, right? That's kind of that face. And I believe the kickoff, the launch date is next Friday, August 30th. We've been working on this for many months and testing things, going through different departments. All the schools had theirs redone over the last couple years, but our district one, it was time, right? We have a new website coming, and I hope that sort of new, fresh, crisp look is something that really represents the feeling both in this room and in this district. We're going to turn the corner from customer service to some of the academic work. The video I'm about to show is from an organization called the Center for Education in the Workforce. They're housed at Georgetown University. And if you're interested in just ed issues and how they connect in our economy with the workforce, they have tremendous, tremendous resources, short videos, but also publications that go very deep into the issues. But this particular video, I believe, captures both the spirit and the major topics of what we need to confront as a district. And we already have a number of things we're going to be doing, so you'll see how what we're doing aligns. But I think this short 2-minute video really articulates the work that we will be doing together very well. So here we go.
In America, it's better to be born rich than smart. Many low-income whites and racial minorities don't get to be all they can be. If you're born wealthy and have high test scores in kindergarten, you're likely to have high scores in high school and be ready for college. But if you're born smart and poor, your chances are slimmer. Half of poor students with high test scores have fallen behind by 8th grade, compared to 1 in 10 rich students with high scores. Consider 2 kindergartners, one with wealthy parents and low test scores, and one with poor parents and high test scores. Before and during elementary school, one child has access to resources that the other does not. These patterns continue in high school, setting the stage for adult success. The highest performing poor students have less chance of graduating from college than the poorest performing rich students. A student from a poor family who has high test scores in 10th grade has a 4 in 10 chance of graduating from college within 10 years. But a student from an affluent family who has low test scores in 10th grade has nearly a 5 in 10 chance of getting a college degree. The chances are even worse for poor black students than they are for poor white students. By the 8th grade, 6 in 10 poor black students who had high test scores in kindergarten have seen those scores drop, compared to 4 in 10 poor white students. And rich black students are almost twice as likely as rich white students to see their scores drop in the same period. It doesn't have to be like this. Education policy can help level the playing field. Early childhood academic interventions are a crucial first step, but there has to be consistent support along the way. Schools need the resources to provide that support, and they need to be held accountable.
Again, just 2 minutes, it says quite a lot, doesn't it? And the thing is, if you've been watching this for years, everything in there just looks kind of familiar. We know these challenges exist, but you have to be deliberate in addressing them, which means you need a plan. So I'm going to take a few minutes, and again, this next slide is also helping make the case for the work we need to do, and I've used this slide for years, but I think once you see how it comes together, when you think about reading, high school literature courses, let me set up where the data comes from. The organization that produced this, what they did is they collected textbooks from all these different places, or they collected reading material from all these different places, and they looked at the complexity of that reading material. They wanted to understand what, not just a student, but someone out there in the workforce, or someone sort of trying to live as an independent adult, what they'd need to be able to do to be successful. And then they compared across a couple of different domains. So this one, high school literature. Now, when we think about schools, generally, that 12th grade English course is kind of that's really the top bar we set for all students. Now, some students go past it and do more than high school literature, but we assume that high school literature, that's really where we kind of rise to, 12th grade, right? So when we looked at the textbooks across high school literature courses, this was the text complexity. You don't need to know the numbers, and you don't really even know what text lexile measure means. It's just the sense of how they all compare. So the complexity of the text in your average high school literature course was down here in this 750 to 950 range. And then they pulled college textbooks. And college literature books, reasonably, I think it makes sense that if you were to look at college textbooks, they're a little bit more rigorous, but there's a little bit of overlap, right? So that's kind of a predictable outcome when you pull those books out. But then I think it starts to get a little surprising. Other high school textbooks. So we looked at all the other textbooks that are not in the literature class. The complexity there was greater than what we see in literature. Now, traditionally, where we teach reading and where we focus on reading skills is in those English courses. But the trouble is the most rigorous stuff in the English courses wasn't as rigorous as the most rigorous stuff in all the other classes where we're not teaching reading. We're just assuming students are able to read at that level. Similar case for college textbooks. Again, the college literature courses, less complex. College textbooks and all of the other sort of non-literature areas, maybe when you're shifting from nonfiction to fiction or fiction to nonfiction. But those college textbooks, again, even more rigorous. And the thing is, again, we're teaching to this level of kind of that 12th grade English class. So some more surprises. What would a first-year recruit in the military encounter? They're here in this very sort of narrow, rigorous band, okay? But that's not down with where we're teaching in high school. In fact, there's no overlap whatsoever with our high bar in high school with those going into the military. And so for years, the military has been struggling with this idea that a huge percentage of our high school graduates are not capable of succeeding in the military. And that's something nationally we need to address. The next category, personal use. Again, independent adult. Their own living arrangement, which maybe needs you either have a mortgage or a lease or the paperwork around that and all the things that you have to read there, bills, all that stuff you encounter as an independent living adult. What's the complexity of what you have to read to be successful there? Again, above where we're teaching most students. Entry-level occupations. the type of reading you might encounter as you're starting a job, whether it's an employee manual or whatever is embedded in the work. That stuff is getting more technical, more complex. And then one last one, which I left in here, is SAT, ACT, advanced placement. Those assessments are considered our most rigorous. Those are the assessments we think about for the top percentage of students. The thing is, they're at the level where we need everyone to be. So if you look down here, the green circle around high school literature, that's where we that's our target, that's what we teach to. That line in the research, they've established that it's about 1190, I think, that the researchers here established as that's where they think the functional, sort of successful, independent adult, whether you're in college, whether you're in a career, we need to be up at that line. And what that means is our students, if they graduate with just our basic high school graduation requirements, we're not getting them there because the high school textbooks, whether you're in a literature, like an English class, or you're in another subject, neither of those sets of reading materials are at the level a student needs to be a successful, independent adult. So we talk about ensuring we're pushing all students to college-level work, or even better, we're giving them college experience before they graduate. Not as this extra bonus, not just for the top kids, but because for our students to be successful, to support themselves out in the real world, they need to be operating at this level. That's hard. School systems haven't done this. We've known about this, we've had a sense of it, but we've known there's this gap between graduation. So the difference in lifelong earnings between someone with a high school diploma and someone with additional college degrees, the difference is, I think the last number I heard, again, Center for the Education Workforce, $1.1 million more you'll make over your lifetime if you have that additional training beyond high school. We need to get our students to a higher bar. The video also touched on equity. We know this is a very diverse county. We know we have some students who come to us with more and some students who come to us with less. We can predict where they are. We can predict how they're going to do. We can know a little bit about their background. But despite the fact that they come to us with differences, we're not doing a lot in our budget. Remember I talked about alignment? We're not doing a lot in our programming to really differentiate the experiences for students who come at different levels. So if you just look, the school supplies, we allocate school supplies, same dollar amount. If you're in a certain grade level, everyone at that grade level, all across the district, it's the same dollar amount for school supplies. Those types of things, we've tended to allocate in an equal manner. Everyone gets the same. But we know that's not going to get the success we need because some students need a boost. Some students need additional resources. So the idea of equity, that we're putting those resources in place, not to help students get ahead, but really just to keep up. So thinking about how we do that deliberately, because the spirit of equity exists here in this county. I've seen it, I've heard people talk about it. It doesn't take a lot of convincing for people to understand the need for this. But what I find is, while we get it, we haven't done a lot of deliberate work to differentiate the experiences of our students and the resources available to the students in different places. But here's the next step, and this is most notably the work with our community college, I think is going to help take us to this one. It's this idea of removing the barriers. Because in addition to the fact that students come to us with differences, we also know that they encounter many different barriers. In some cases because of the resources they have access to, whether it's transportation or things like tutors or all those other things, those experiences that the video referenced. But in some cases, we may be putting those barriers in place without even knowing it, by the way we design programs, where we place programs, things like that. So part of our work, and this is moving forward, is to be thinking about where are those barriers for our students so that they're not able to achieve the success that they possibly could with better support. So focusing on how to remove those barriers. So not only are we giving more in resources to support those who need it the most, but making sure we're not making it harder for them with other things we do. Now, this is something I rolled out back in the spring. I had a lot of help with this, but I know that many of you haven't seen it. I mean, I've shown it in board meetings, I've shown it in principals meetings, but it's not something that necessarily is widely known. So I thought it was really important that everyone get to see this and understand a little bit of what's going on here. So before I go a whole lot deeper, we're just going to talk about this particular logo. If you notice driving in here today, the bars with the multicolors, that's right out front by the entrance of Harford Community College because that is their brand, that is their logo. If you look down at the bottom in the text, you'll see a couple things. The O, those are our leaves from our logo, from our website. So those are Harford County Public Schools. But the R, I don't know how this happened at HCC. They have a pretty normal font, but they have one letter that stands out in their font, and that's the R. And so we took their R and we put that in this. What we wanted to demonstrate was this collaboration between the two entities and how we're going to work together. Dr. Phillips and I frequently talk about our goal is to blur the lines between K-12 and higher education, because that's really where the world's going. And I think working deliberately, we can do a lot of that. Now, this part down here, that tail, that's us. 14 bars, pre-K to 12. But that's not just us in the classroom. That's everybody. That's making sure that our students get to the bus stop and they see a smiling face and they can get safely from that bus stop into school on time. Ensuring they are available for education because of the work we do, because of the work many of you do. It's ensuring in those 14 years of schooling that they walk into buildings where they feel cared about. They feel that someone takes my education seriously enough to ensure that, they can see the reflection in the floors and everything is orderly and they know they're in a place where we take this work seriously and we care about you. That's what our building service workers do. That's what our facilities folks do to make sure that we have a comfortable environment for education to occur. Everybody who works here, that's all of you, make this happen. So, but we have a lot more work to do because we have this awesome responsibility of 14 years to get the work done on behalf of these students. So a couple of things going forward that we're going to see. I want to be looking at 5 particular years, kindergarten, 3, 5, 8, and 10, as milestones. They're going to have some check-in points there. And so we're going through now looking at if a student's able to do this in 5th grade, we know they can be college ready, and I'm going to explain this in a second, by the end of 10th grade. We have students who've done it. We have students who have taken college courses while in high school. We have students who've been successful at the very highest levels. They come from all different parts of this county. They look all different ways. They come from all different backgrounds. So what did they do? If we look at those who were successful and understand that, we can set our benchmarks. As we saw on the reading slide, we need to move everybody up. And so we're going to be working on setting these benchmarks and communicating them, and those will become central to our instructional goals for our students and, of course, for us. And if we take it back even another step, so that when we're thinking about our training across the entire district, it's aligned with that work. when I think of North Star is a pathway that starts in pre-kindergarten. But the outcome at the other end, I want you to read this. Every student graduates with college experience or career licensure. You've probably read many different mission statements, vision statements, all those things, and they all say the word every. Somehow we try to make sure we're hitting all kids in those statements, but the thing is we don't, we haven't. And that's something we need to figure out, because we can't leave any of them in that gap between high school and independent living. Thank you. For me, the word in here that matters, the word that makes our plan different, is experience. You've been hearing about college and career readiness, but we need to make sure our students experience college or college-level work or work where they are prepared very well for at least one career before they leave us. So we know that every student who graduates from our school district has either demonstrated their ability to be successful in college or has received some sort of technical training from the school, so either from us in the school district or, in many cases, that technical training will come from Harford Community College, so that they're prepared to be successful. So when they walk across this stage, except for those of you in Harvard of Grace, and when they walk across this stage at graduation, they will be going to some place they can be successful, whether it's college, whether it's right in here for more training at Harford Community College, or whether it's into a career that they can start with a salary where they can actually support themselves. So, let's talk about how we're going to do that, because it sounds great, but it's going to be a lot of work. We've broken those 14 years into 3 bands. The first one we've dubbed Prepare. Pre-kindergarten, kindergarten 1 and 2. And my apologies to anyone who teaches 3 through 12, but there are no more important years. Investing in those first 4 years Investing in those first 4 years is the greatest possible educational return on our investment that we can get. Because if we don't get them there, if we don't get them where they need to be successful in 3rd grade, on the trajectory to have that college experience before they graduate, then we have to play a lot of catch up. And so those first 4 years. Now, as we said, Kerwin Commission, one of the things they're focusing on is pre-kindergarten and expanding access to that. We are doing that. We are growing access to our pre-kindergarten programs. That's beginning. It has to continue. But then that's also the place where we need to know that they've learned to read. They've learned to write. They are good problem solvers. But then the last one on there, health. We've talked a lot about mental health, but mental and physical health. That's something that school systems do, but I'm not sure we've measured. What does it mean to ensure students have what they need to lead a healthy life when they leave us? We need to build those habits in starting from the beginning, and we need to be very clear about what we're trying to achieve there. So more to follow on that. So let's go to grades 3 through 8. We stuck you all together even though it crosses the line, right? But this is the time I don't know, does 1,080 days sound like a lot or a little? Sometimes it sounds like a lot, but when you really add it up, I mean, that's 6 years of education with 180 days at a time, but a lot has to happen. Think about this. We need to get these kids even more excited about learning. We need to help them figure out who they are, what they can be good at, what they can be excited about. We need to help them navigate all the crazy changes going on in their bodies for those years and get through on the other end ready to grow into productive adults. But we also, and I think this is something that I just kind of threw in here, but I think it's something we can talk about more, we need to find out what kids are good at. Because if we can understand their strengths, you hear I mentioned at the beginning, I know what one of mine is, it's including. I think I nailed it today with 2,500 people in the room. We've included a lot of people in this mission. Our students have all different strengths. Let's learn what those are so we can build on strengths and see if we can start to get out of the business of only focusing on deficits with remediation and things like that. Let's let our kids soar, and it's during this time, 3 through 8, where I think we build in that excitement and we help them grow into who they're going to become. So then we go 9, 10, 11, 12. Here's the problem. If we don't do all that in pre-K through 8, the toughest year, the year kids get stuck, the year most dropouts occur between 9th and 10th grade, that's where they get stuck. So if we don't have them ready by the time they get there, we can't do this other stuff. We need them college ready by the end of 10th grade. Why? Because we're going to have them experiencing college by the time they're in 11th or 12th. Again, they're not all doing college English, those courses that take you to other academic degrees. They may be doing something more technical. This is the right place to do it, but we want to know they can be successful. They can be successful navigating what it's like to be in a college setting. Registering for the classes, getting to classes, doing those things that professors expect of them, that independent work that they have to do a little differently without the supports we provide in our K-12 setting. For those, and I think in the end it's going to be a pretty small number who aren't doing some sort of technical training, those who aren't coming to the college at all, we've got to focus on how we're going to ensure they have some kind of licensure to be successful in a career, again, so they can be independent adults later on. But for many of our students, it's going to be college coursework. So let me put a couple things out there. We have some percentage of our students who are in, we have unbelievable magnet programs in this district, and those kids who come out of there, I'm not worried about them. You're doing great work with them. We know when they leave the program spread throughout this district, they're going out into the world and they're being successful. So we have to keep pushing them. We need to keep challenging them. But they're here. They're the ones we're going to be looking at to figure out how we get the rest of them there. We have kids doing advanced placement courses, doing that college level work. So we know that those kids, study of advanced placement, any student who passed an advanced placement exam while in high school, and this is national data, 2 to 3 times as likely to finish college within 6 years. We know that's a great predictor of later success. So we have a good sense of which students are already being successful, who we've prepared at the level that we know they can then go out and be independent adults contributing in this society, but we also know there's a group we haven't gotten yet. So this continued focus on that for them. So let's talk about, let's talk for a second, and I'm going to come back to this one in a moment. Let's talk for a second. If you remember the slide where we removed the barriers, the idea of no barriers, if I had to think of the 2 greatest barriers to college level work, one is cost and the other is transportation. Those are things we'll be working on, looking at how to not only reduce the costs, but to ensure any student who enrolls in an HCC course while they are a student with us can do it for free. If that's our commitment to pre-kindergarten through 12th grade, that any student who's enrolled in an HCPS high school can attend here for free while they're enrolled with us. We can figure that out. Because we need to remove those barriers. Because here's another, this is one of those staggering stats. $1.6 trillion. That right now is the bill. That's the college debt bill that families in this country have. $1.6 trillion. If we can get a student, we can pay for the first year of college for a student, and we can lop 25% off of a family's bill down the road for sending a child to college, we've done a great service to this district, and we've ensured our students are able to succeed because those who've had college experience while in high school, they graduate, they earn their degrees at a much higher rate than those who haven't had that experience. So let's talk about what we need to do. I'm going to try to simplify this. We have a brand. Harford County Public Schools has a brand. That brand is most tangible in the students we turn out. We need to continue improving that brand. And quite frankly, we started this conversation on the topic of the budget, right? The budget isn't just, here's the money to do what you do. It's, the budget is an investment in the work we do. It's an investment to turn out those students. And if we're going to keep seeking additional investment from our state leaders, from our local leaders, then we need to be able to improve that brand. They need to know they're getting the return on the investment that they expect from us. So put very simply, when I think of the entry plan and those major topics that come up, as I said, we talked about reading. Probably no more important place to focus in terms of learning is to make sure our students are fantastic readers. We have some things going on with that, and we're pushing that a little bit, looking at a new elementary curriculum, and we have some other things going on there. But we also need to make sure they're writing well, because this is something we hear from the business world. Again, I believe it's a national impact, and I kind of want to blame No Child Left Behind that, because we dropped writing for so long that we hear from business leaders and employers, yeah, our graduates really, we need to teach them to write once they get here because they're just not coming out with that skill anymore. But you all knew that. You started on that work. And you've got a head start, because I think a lot of places still haven't even started. Our students are going to leave as writers. Our students are going to leave as problem solvers. It's not just math. Problem finding is a really good one, okay? That's a challenge. That's one of those employability skills that we need students focused on. But a commitment to ensuring they're able to work in that realm. But then these last two, and I said this before, healthy and employable. School districts work on the healthy part, but we haven't necessarily shown that as an area where we need deliberate growth. We need to look at what it means to ensure a student is capable of leading a healthy lifestyle when they leave us. And if they're struggling while they're with us, we need to look at those resources. What are the supports they need to be successful? So that's an area where I think we need to be more deliberate. And then employable. Talk to any business leader, and this is part of my work, going out, finding out what do they need from us. They always talk about the soft skills, the ability to work together, the ability to show up on time, the ability just to be responsible employees, 1,000 things to make them successful. Again, that's an area where we can be deliberate. If we can ensure this community, if we can ensure those who invest in us, and many of you are investing in us, if we can ensure those who are investing in us that our students are leaving with these attributes, with these skills, that this county is getting the return on the investment they deserve for the work we're doing, and I believe we can get there. So what does it mean for us to deliver on our brand? We need to produce a greater percentage of North Star graduates every year. So I want to close with one last story. I go to the graduations. Again, 2 of them were on conflict, but I got to 12 of the 13 graduations last year. And it's not uncommon for someone, whether it's principals or speakers or someone, to ask students to stand if they've been a part of some group or had some other achievement. You know, you were state title winning athletes in some sport, please stand. You passed an AP assessment while you were in high school, please stand. You graduated from one of our magnets or signature programs, please stand. It's great to recognize those students, but we had a lot of kids who didn't get to stand. They were there, they got to stand when we gave out the diplomas. But look at the faces of the students who either didn't achieve one of those extra things or didn't even know how important it was. I believe we can get every one of our students, starting in pre-kindergarten, to have college experience before they leave us, or to have some career that we know they are prepared to go and be successful in before they leave. If we can do one of these two, if we can get there, then everybody stands. That's where we need to go. We have the right team here to do it. And I think I'm going to leave with just one final thought. It was fun to walk in here and hear the music and see the videos and see the matching t-shirts and just see the energy and enthusiasm that was here as you were walking in the door. Our students need to feel that. Now, I know there's some schools I walk into and the music's playing and it's like a party every day. That's fantastic. They need to have fun. We need to have fun. This is a great group. We are the right team. We're going to get this work done for our students. I'm so excited you were here today. Thank you. Have a great school year.